It was around 2 in the morning. I was driving to the campsite and I see this ball of light going through the forest. This big white ball of light gets bigger. And as it gets bigger, there's this red little light that comes out of it. After I saw the red light, a couple seconds later, I completely checked out. What happened? I had no clue. A very panic kind of state of mind.
This is the Cryptid Creatures Podcast. I am Brian, and with me as always is my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Brian. You know, we've talked about aliens before. We've talked about abductions before.
Travis Walton.
We've even met Travis Walton.
Shook his hand.
We did. Gave him a card. We try to get him on the show. But anyway, tonight's guest had some kind of weird experience, and he lost track of time and ended up in a different area, I think, than when he started. So kind of wondering if he didn't get abducted here.
That's what I'm thinking.
You know?
I think we're going to find out here in a minute.
Yeah, we're going to bring Jesse on tonight. We're going to let him tell us what he experienced and what happened to him.
Yep, let's get him.
This is Lyle Blackburn, and you're listening to the Cryptid Creatures Podcast with Brian and Todd.
Hey, Jesse.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Thanks for coming on and talking to us today.
I'm glad to talk to you guys.
So you had reached out to us on an email and said that you had an interesting thing happen to you.
Yeah, so this happened last year during the summer. I was staying with a friend in Lake Tahoe, and I must have been about 36, so it wasn't.
So just
too long
last
ago.
year, yeah, this wasn't a long time
Yeah,
ago.
No, it's pretty relevant. Still kind of learning the aftermath of everything that happened in those 2 days or 2 nights. But yeah, I guess to pretty much get into it, I believe this was not a new thing to me, but something that was the most dominant experience I've had that kind of made me think after of all the little connections I've had in my life. And this just pretty much was the anchor point. So to pretty much get into it, the first night was probably just as strange as the second, but in a different way. Prior to this experience, so I was just first camping in South Lake Tahoe, and this little remote area, it doesn't have a lot of campsites, so there's not a lot of people that go there. It is not regulated as much by the National Park System or the National Forest System. So it's pretty remote. So I had some buddies. We always go camping every year to remote places and just to get off the grid. Last year was Lake Tahoe. So they were hanging out with me for a couple days while I was working in Gardnerville, Nevada. After they left, that's when things got really weird. Yeah, so the first night, as usual, I was sleeping in my tent, and probably the dead of midnight, I woke up to this like orb, I want to say this light that was shining through my tent. And I was pretty annoyed, to be honest, because I had no idea why there's this like luminant light coming through my tent and just annoying me. And so, like anybody, we're going to investigate because we naturally think it's somebody else that's entering our space while we're camping. There's always that camping rule, stay off my lot, but if you need help, I'm always here. So I had that kind of idea. Well, maybe somebody needs some help, and that's why they're entering my spot in the middle of the night. How the light was shining through my tent, it was just this aqua blue, it lit up the whole area. So I unzipped and I'm looking around and I finally look up to the sky and I see this big, big blue ball. And I wasn't sure what I was looking at until it hit me. Oh, I'm just looking at the moon. That's just all it is. It's just a big full moon and it's just in a position where it seems like it's pretty close. Not a big deal. And then I was like, wow, it's actually really pretty. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to zip back my tent and go back to sleep. And that's what I did. And nothing happened other than that first night. And just carried on my day for the next day and just had no idea if that was anything other than what happened the second night. So the second night, I was working down Gardnerville, and it was a late night, and I ended up just driving back to camp. And it was around 2 a.m. The way to get there, you have to go through kind of deep in the forest. You do lose service for a little bit. It's pretty remote. So driving to that spot is when I lost time. There was just a lot of events that happened. And to this day, I'm still kind of piecing everything together. But for what I do remember, I was driving to the campsite and I was listening to my music and I turned to my left and I see this ball of light going through the forest. And I look at it and it's like, oh, not a big deal. It's probably another car. And I just keep driving. But for some reason, I wanted to look again. And probably after, a mile or two, I look again. The light is still just kind of following me. I would say it was a good about 50 yards. And it's just whooshing through the trees. And it starts kind of elevating up past the kind of the tree line. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. There's no hills on that side because I'm pretty familiar with Lake Tahoe. And it just goes up in the air. Okay, that's definitely not a car. And this big white ball light gets bigger. And as it gets bigger, there's this red little light that comes out of it. And it goes the complete opposite direction, like in a Y formation. So the white light goes up, the little red light goes towards the lake. And I said, oh shit. And that's when I completely forgot everything. And I do not realize, I didn't realize after this whole episode that the time was lost because I was just not looking at the clock. So I guess what happened is after I saw the red light a couple seconds later, I completely checked out. What happened? I have no clue. But what I was aware of is that I just remembered being in a roundabout, parked to the side, and I was crying. I was sobbing. I was just in a very panic kind of state of mind, and my body was reacting in a way where it was complete shock, and I didn't know why. And the best way I can articulate on how that feels is like a glitch. Just like our phones and our computers or whatever. When something just stops working and it glitches out and we get that scrambled effect. And that's what my brain felt like. I couldn't comprehend the last whatever time. And just to give a kind of a timestamp, when I left the ranch, it was probably around 2 a.m, and now it was like almost 4. And it only takes about 25-30 minutes to get to the campsite from the ranch. So I had no idea. At the time, I had no idea. So here I am, in this cul-de-sac, crying, sobbing. The first thing I thought was to call my best friend, and who was recently just camping up there with me. And so I called him, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, I don't know what just happened. I'm freaking out. I'm crying." And he's like, "Okay, well, where are you at?" And I was like, "I think I'm in a cul-de-sac." He's like, "Okay, you need to go back to camp." I'm like, but I saw this white light and this red light came out. And he's like, yeah. Okay. Calm down. Pretty much all you got to do is just go to camp. And so he just repeatedly kept saying that no matter what I wanted to tell him. And I'm like, okay. Let me try to figure it out. And as I said that, the phone went completely dead and it got really hot. And I was like, oh, that sucks. So I'm like, okay, let's address the situation. Let's put all the emotions on the side and let's just get to camp. So luckily for me, I got to camp and still very disoriented, just trying to, like, if you're really drunk and you're trying to get home, not drinking and driving, of course, but, like you're just trying to figure out simple, basic things like how to open the door and how to like walk right foot, left foot. So that's what it felt like driving. It felt like I had to talk to myself for me to comprehend. And that was the key, comprehending on what I was doing, because I was not comprehending anything with logical, whatever. So I get to camp and I started kind of waking up out of whatever that was. And I call my buddy because my phone started working again. And he's like, "Oh, good. I was just on the phone with the forest rangers and giving all your information." And I was like, no, I'm cool now. I'm back to camp, but hey, I have a question for you. And he's like, "Oh, what's up?" And I was like, okay, I'm looking at the sky right now. It's really, really dark. It's black. When you guys were here, did you see any full moon, or was there anything in the sky that was just big? And he's like, no, there was nothing there, but don't worry about that right now. Just go to bed. I'm like, I saw this big moon yesterday, and it was really close to like my tent, and it was just a big full moon. He's like, again, I hear you, but just go to bed. We'll talk about tomorrow. And I'm like, all right. So I get to camp, and I get into my sleeping bag, and of course, I can't sleep. And so not too long after I got to camp, I started hearing a whoosh, 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 whoosh. And I end up calling my other friend to kind of clarify that I'm not crazy. And so she's talking to me, and I said, "Do you hear this whooping noise?" And she's like, "Yeah, I hear it." She's like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a long story, but I just want someone to know, other than my other friend, to know that I'm hearing what I think I'm hearing, not hallucinating." And she's like, "Yeah, I hear it." I was like, okay, I'll let you go. And so I go outside to hear what this whooshing noise is. And I look and I see maybe 5 very dark helicopters circling around this whole area. And they were circling for, I would say, a good 15-20 minutes until they disappeared. And I knew instantly, I knew it was the government. I knew the government was there. I used to work for the government for a little bit. So I kind of get how their procedures are. And just for being an avid listener to a lot of different platforms, when something happens that it's not supposed to happen, of course, Big Brother's always there to investigate for their own purposes. So that's how I took it at that night. And this seemed to be one of the most dominant experience I've had in a lifetime of experiences.
Yeah, definitely. That's crazy. Before this happened, did you have anything else going on weird?
Yeah. So, give a little backstory on who I am. I am a half-breed Native American. I've lived really close to reservations, and so I've had families who've seen, everything from ghosts and lots of different weird things. And of course, in the 90s, there's not as much education out there as there is now. So as a kid, trying to understand these things that would happen to me, now listening to other people's experiences have really answered these. I'm a very avid outdoorsman. Right now I live in Montana. So it was just, I've seen shadow people. I've heard whooping noises like the Sierra sounds. I've heard even here at Glacier. I've seen, as funny as it is, I've seen a chupacabra in Kansas. I feel like, I don't know why I am so drawn or this energy of things that happened to me in my life. And I know, and this experience, whatever that was in Tahoe, was just kind of an anchor point or something that was just wanted to be dominant to it. But, yeah, camping out in the woods, I've always said, like, you go in these dispersed areas and you see some weird stuff.
So what happened after the helicopters? Did you get out of there the next day, or did you stay the night? What would you do?
Fortunately, I was stuck, so I had to stay there for work, and this is around the summer in Tahoe, and there's just nowhere to camp that is not either populated with families, or there's just so much places you can't camp. So there's just so many rules in that area. Yeah, I had to stay for a while. The person that I was seeing at the time, she's very insightful. I learned a lot from her about that other kind of paranormal stuff. She was telling me, she's like, okay, well, let's retrace your step for those last couple of days. And so she determined, because I brought them went into that realm, you were a magnet to that, and that's why you were drawn. They wanted to do what they wanted to do. On this ranch, I asked her, so there's a big kind of corral, and it's probably their biggest corral, but they don't have any horses there, and I've asked why, because they stick 5 horses in a little corral and nothing in this one. And she's like, well, there's a portal there. And I laughed, and I was like, a portal to what? And she's like, well, interdimensional beings. They love that portal. They freak out the horses, so we just don't put anything over there. She's like, but Tahoe is such an important place to a lot of things and people. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, she goes, Tahoe is important, of course, to Nevada, to California, to humans, to creatures, to aliens. And she's like, they go in and out of the water. And actually there's a tunnel system that goes from Tahoe all the way to Pyramid Lake, Nevada. And I guess there's something out there in that lake that is very important to a lot of things. So, but the crazy thing about all this is, this year I went camping at Zion, with the same buddies. And of course we were all around the campfire, and, my other buddy, I was telling him the story I just told you guys. And as I was telling the story, the guy who I called on the phone with, he's like, whoa. You told me a different story that night. And I'm like, oh yeah, what did I tell you? He's like, well, you said you were driving and you saw this white light and you stopped and you got out of your car and you start walking towards the white light in the woods. And you said this white light turned into this, like white creature, and it had red eyes and it started chasing you through the woods. And you ran back to your car, and when it got up to your car, that's when you blacked out. And I was like, I don't remember that. I just remember seeing the white light coming out of the woods, and the red light coming out of it. And he's like, no, that's not what you told me. I was like, that's all I remember. So
Interesting.
I guess that night I told him a different story than what I remember that actually was, I can comprehend. So.
Wow.
So you were driving along and saw this light. You're on a road, highway, whatever. Whatever happened to you happened. And when you came back, woke up, whatever it was, you were in a cul-de-sac somewhere completely different?
Yeah, I was probably about, I want to say, a good 25 miles away from what I was supposed to be. But I lost a good hour and a half of time. So
That's what I was going to ask. How much time did you lose?
Yeah, a good hour and a half. And
wow.
I don't really drink. I don't smoke weed. I don't do any hallucinants. I'm pretty straight edge. So I don't know. I'm kind of scared to know what happened. And I've had some friends in Montana that do like hypnotherapy and whatnot. And they've asked me if I wanted to go on a session. And I say absolutely not. Because, when you sleep, that's the most peaceful time of pretty much, your day. So I don't want that to be ruined. And of course, I've had a history of things that happen to me, especially out when I go camping. The same buddy that I talked to on the phone, we were camping in Kanab, Utah, 2 years ago, and we stumbled onto this little area. We weren't sure if we were supposed to be camping there, but we went pretty much 5 miles into this desert area. And as we were setting camp, we saw these like glowing orange eyes all around our camp, and it freaked us out. And of course, we had a bunch of guns, so we were just shooting up in the air to try to scare whatever it was. But they would just kind of like stare at us and run away, and it just happened all night until we left. But so when this event happened, this UFO, this whatever it was, I would say that was probably my worst experience out of a laundry list of little weird ones that has happened.
Were the eyes that you saw, were they higher up, like in the air, or were they more low, like a four-legged animal, or do you think they were higher up than that?
I would say a good about 4 or 5 feet. Some would be about 2 feet off the ground. My grandma told me a story about the little people up on our reservation. And so I naturally thought maybe they were the little people. But some were 4 feet. And so we didn't understand. Well, I didn't understand what that was. But there's a lot of things that are out there that, we're all trying to investigate. And it's funny because I was listening to you guys the other night about the girl that lives in Libby, Montana, which is
Mhm.
only about
Yeah.
2 hours away from me. And
Really?
yeah, I live right next to Glacier National Park. And you guys asked her about any creatures in Glacier, and I was listening to you guys. Like, yes, there definitely is something at Glacier, and I was like, I can't wait to talk to you guys because, like, I know what she saw was she saw evil medicine man, and but at Glacier, we have 3 families of Bigfoot out here, and I've got this information from this like really old time logger who showed me all these pictures of these huts and these structures. And he didn't want to tell anybody because this guy's an old school Montana dude. He didn't want to tell anybody because he didn't want to get either fired or people think he's, crazy. So he was showing me on his phone that he goes out to Hungry Horse, which is a big reservoir between Columbia Falls and Glacier. And he's like, yeah, there's these 3 families of Bigfoot. They stink really, really bad. And every time that, there's a hut that they build, the national park rangers will come a couple days later and tear it all down and act like nothing happened, but they keep building these things. And so again, like I go out to the woods a lot, and sometimes I'd go for a sunrise hike, and I've heard these whoopings out by Lake McDonald, which is a lake at Glacier, and they sound exactly like the Sierra sounds. And I guess what my point is the amount of resources out there. I would have never known what the Sierra sounds if I didn't hear, other podcasts or investigate my own self.
Right.
I would have just thought, oh, well, whatever that was, I don't care. But the fact that I can identify to something else in a different part of the country, you kind of connect the dots. So with this alien experience, it's like connecting the dots to what other people are experiencing, so I can kind of communicate to my own self what happened.
Right.
Do you think you were taken up somewhere, abducted, so to speak, in that time period you were blacked out?
I don't know. Like, I want to say yes, but I don't know for what purpose. I don't think it's cinematic as Hollywood makes alien movies really are. They're not as terrifying as that. It seems like it's just more of a pause in your own subconscious. And what I guess what I've noticed after the abduction, sometimes I would wake up with a black eye or a really like a pulled muscle in my lower back. And then maybe after 2 hours, it goes away. And this is probably within the last 2 weeks. And I don't know what it is. And so I try to break things down logically. Like, okay, maybe I whacked myself while I was sleeping. There's always some kind of logical explanation about something, but what happened in Tahoe, I can't explain it. And I've looked at the lunar cycle for that night in that area, for if there was a full moon that night, and there was no full moon. So even researching that, and I end up going to the extent of, I found this website where you can search UFO sightings throughout the country. And so I looked around Northern California and even into LA about what other people have sighted in the sky. And I did see down, I think I want to say by Salinas, California, that someone else saw a white light and a red light together. So, and that was, I think, maybe a day earlier. So I just started connecting the dots as more I'm getting out of this I guess you would say, shock of what happened.
Well, you had mentioned earlier that you don't know why these things keep happening to you. Maybe it's because you're listening to podcasts and listening to all these things. Brian and I have talked about this before. Some people are just magnets to this stuff.
Yeah, they're into it.
Yeah, I mean, you just draw these things naturally. I don't know why it is. Sometimes I wish I was that way, but maybe I don't really want to be that way. Thinking about it, did you feel any pain or anything other than the black eye and the back problems recently? But right after this happened, did you feel any pain or sickness?
No, I actually think I got better. So maybe it was a good thing. Yeah, no, I feel like I got better. I was having major kidney stones and those suck. So after this event, they kind of just completely went away. My metabolism started getting crazy high. Like I'm 37 now, but I start feeling like I was 25. And my brain just, and I'm not saying it was because of that event. I just noticing little things that have happened since then, they're positives. Negative, there's nothing negative that I feel like came out of that. So, as I said earlier, that weird things have happened to me, and this is the most dominant one. I've seen, when I was a kid, I didn't sleep I slept under my bed until I was 13 because I would see black figures standing over me as a child, and I didn't know what I was seeing, so I figured sleeping with the spiders down under the bed was a better option. And when I got into the military, I was stationed at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and I would see a lot of different things out there. And I couldn't explain it. Even when we were doing this training situation out in the sticks, I would see these kind of, I thought they were shadow people, but these black figures standing behind trees, kind of in and out of the tree, looking, and then once you look at them, they turn away. And so after this experience that happened last year, I kind of really took all my events that I've seen and kind of tried to puzzle them together. And I thought they were shadow people, but I'm kind of realizing that they might have been, entities. They could have been Bigfoot. They could have been anything. And so, so it's just with this alien encounter, I have it. The one thing that has happened that is negative is every time I see something, it kind of triggers me, and it didn't trigger me before. But when I see, like, say, ancient aliens or something that shows the grays and they're standing over somebody's body, that completely freaks me out now. And it used to not freak me out. I used to thought it was kind of funny, but I don't know why it kind of like makes me uncomfortable now. And yeah, so I don't know.
That's probably what's in your subconscious from the abduction. You probably were abducted, and they, I mean, we don't know why they do it. Asian, I don't know. But that's probably
I don't know.
Residual in your subconscious. Just remember.
Yeah, there is like, it got so bad when I was a kid about seeing weird things. I was like, I want to live in a house that has no windows, because I was terrified of windows. I thought the most terrifying thing was to open your window at night and seeing somebody just staring at you through the window. And I would experience that as a kid. And there was a lot of cats that would go by my window and just cry, and that scared me too. And I was a tough little kid, I was a little, but so, so I mean, to have all these weird things and try to kind of be tough and try to bury it in yourself and not talk about it. And then it's tough. So now that it's cool that people like you guys are presenting this platform for people like me to kind of talk about it, and so
that's why we started this. Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys, since you guys started this podcast, have you guys manifested some kind of more, I guess, paranormal attention on your guys' lives?
We talked about, like we were saying earlier, you've experienced a lot of stuff. Some people are just really what we call sensitive to this stuff. And we don't mean sensitive in the word that people think. We mean that you see things more, you accept things more. Brian and I could walk by an entity that's really there, a ghost, so to speak, and not even know anything, feel anything, nothing. You could walk by and be like, there's something right there. I feel it, Some people just have that knack to accept or naturally have knowledge about these things and interact with these things more than other people, I think. I don't know why you were chosen, if you're abducted, why the reason good things came out of it, I guess. You're more keen, maybe refreshed as a human being, so to speak. Maybe it's something everyone should have happen to them. I don't know. But I know you don't want to delve into it. You said really you don't really want to know, but have you ever thought about talking to a therapist or a hypnotist to try to figure out, maybe get the details, just to know really what's going on?
Yeah, I think you're right about the sensitive magnet. But yeah, I think eventually I will be ready to unlock that door and see what really happened through that lost time.
I can see how you wouldn't want to do it now. It's still pretty fresh.
Yeah. Well, knowledge is power, and I'm not ready for that power yet. So, but yeah, for whatever it is, I don't think it's going away. I think this is just something like, in life, like, great, I have to kind of, put attention to this now. So, every encounter I've had with weird stuff, it's more of a knowing. It's a knowing to deal with. The alien thing, just plain sucks. And it's not going to stop me from going out in the woods and experiencing, life. Yeah. But ultimately it just sucks, man.
Well, it'll definitely keep you on your toes while you're out there. So,
yeah, I mean, I moved to Montana, and not because of that, but I'm a frequent outdoorsman, and now that I'm listening to other people's experiences, I've realized in Montana that I think this is one of the top 5 states of people reporting aliens and UFOs. And I know with the Sierra Nevadas, that is like a hot spot for, Bigfoot and so I'm getting kind of, I guess, the best of two worlds here. And with Montana, I've noticed that there's, of course, not a lot of people here, so there's not going to be a lot of sightings reported. And that's more of paranormal in a whole, whether it be Bigfoot or aliens. I didn't know what the Dogman was until I started listening to all these podcasts, and I've never seen any of that. But I think the most terrifying thing is someone invading your space and taking you out of your routine and doing things to you and just plopping you back. And
yeah, that would be the worst part about that whole thing, is somebody having that much control over you that they can stop your life for an hour or two, or however long it takes.
Yeah, it definitely sucks. And the first kind of, prior to this, I've never seen any like UFOs or anything until I started living near the res in East San Diego, California. And this one night I was falling asleep, and my dog was outside, and he just kept yapping and yapping, and all the coyotes they just started going crazy, and I was telling my dog to be quiet, and he wouldn't listen to me. So I go outside to unchain him to on his dog run, and the dog is just looking up in the sky, and all of a sudden the coyotes just stop yapping, and I'm trying to get my dog in the house, but he won't move. So I look in the sky to see what he's looking, and I see this light going through the mountains, and I'm like, okay, cool. Well, let's go in the house, and he won't move, and he's being stubborn. And I look back at the light stops, and I figured it's just a plane changing directions going towards me. So it's an illusion that it looks like it stops, but it's just heading towards me. That's what I perceived that to be. But then it shot the other direction in like a crazy speed, like a millisecond, just boom that way onto towards like Mexico and whatever. And I was like, whoa. And the dog snapped out of it. All the coyotes started yupping again. And I was like, oh, that was so cool. So I took that more as a joke, like something that was like, oh, that was just freaky and fun. But yeah, that was a whole different experience than Tahoe. And I don't know. It's just not what I think. Okay. So what I think what happened in Tahoe, I can try to explain the second night logically and break it down where I believe maybe, I just zoned out and I just was kind of maybe in the cul-de-sac for a little bit and just kind of blanked my entire head for no reason. I have no clue. Maybe that's a possibility. But the night one of seeing that big blue moon, I can't explain it. So none of it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it was a moon you saw, obviously.
I don't think so either.
And I'm sure the one you saw the second night was probably the same thing. Did it appear to look the same as what you saw the night before?
Yeah, it looked exactly the same. I'm an artist, so I try to therapeutic my brain by articulating what I saw. So I've drawn a couple of pictures of that night and maybe to try to unlock something on my own. But they did look the same. It did have a little hint of blue. Yeah, I can email those to you guys. I can't, I don't know. It's funny because, of course, being out in the woods, you've seen Bigfoot, you hear Bigfoot, you hear these crazy stories that people experience. Ghosts seem like the most innocent, basic thing. As terrifying as still is, it's not feel like a big deal. Hearing monkey guys in the woods, whooping and tree knocking, whatever, right. Dogman, whatever, government, whatever. It's just those things that happen to you while you sleep or while you're camping out in the woods and you lose time. That's the stuff that really sucks. So, and what kind of refreshes my mind is, one night when I was sleeping, with my ex-wife, well, she was my wife at the time. We were laying in bed. We were, of course, passed out. I woke up in the middle of the night and I turned over and I see this big black shadow standing over her and it's leaning towards her and staring her right in the face. And I leaned and I looked at it and I was like, oh, hell no, I'm going right back to bed. I turned over. I didn't tell her anything. And, but it's just, I think I've a magnet towards these things and I don't know what I don't know what her history was. So we never really talked about this. And so maybe, she was just caught in the crosshairs and This is all this stuff that I've kind of buried in myself, but until this event, it's kind of everything is just kind of connecting the dots.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
if you really want to get into what you think happened, it wouldn't hurt to talk to more people and try to open that up if that's something you want to do. I'd kind of like to know what happened to you exactly, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. For that to happen, though, for the way it went down, if you were taken up by something, you and your car had to have been lifted up and taken and then put in a different spot. Not just you, your car as well. If you think about it.
That's funny you say that, because now that I'm thinking, my car, it was a brand new Jeep JL. That thing was a new model. It was a Jeep Wrangler. Honestly, I would say about a month later, that car got annihilated. Something went wrong with the engine. And even the mechanics didn't understand why. It just something with the engine just fried. And because there was a lot of electronic things that were going on with it. And it was a brand new Jeep, and I don't understand why mechanically it just decided to, take a dump. So you're right. If I was taken, that Jeep had to be put in a different spot with me.
Right.
It's like they were flying around. You were the only. There weren't any other cars around you when this happened, were there? Do you remember? Were you just alone on the road?
No, I was just alone on the road, and I didn't. I'm used to that because I would drive a lot from Montana to California, and sometimes I'd be out in the boonies in Montana, in these really remote areas, and nothing has ever happened. But in Tahoe, there was nobody around me. Of course, it was the middle of the night. There are a few houses there, so it's not completely isolated, but I feel like whatever it was, it wanted me for a purpose, for reasons I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess as I live my life a little more, I guess more answers will kind of blossom.
Maybe.
Have you thought about going back to that spot, or do you want to go back to that spot? Probably not.
Yeah, I'll go back to that spot. I figured that it's not the spot; it's just wherever I'm at. I mean, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah. They found you the first time; they'll find you again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to run away from something that's far more superior than I am. So if it's going to happen, I'm like, well, let's just let it happen. And maybe I need to understand this. I guess that's one of the reasons why I decided to move back to Montana. And, I guess just to get away from every crazy thing that's happened in the country, and maybe just getting away from that little area too. But, yeah, I guess time will tell.
Are you worried that this could happen to you again?
I think it has happened to me already. And as long as I feel like if I don't remember it, then I'm fine. So,
yeah, I mean, it could be worse. You could remember everything, I guess.
Yeah, I hear other people's encounters, and they've had more of kind of imagination. Not saying that I'm not discrediting anybody, but they have more of awareness of what's going on. They remember being abducted. They remember they're finding things in their body. So I know their experiences are way more terrifying than me. Mine is more like turning the blind eye, and maybe that's good, maybe it's bad. Maybe I was conditioned to think that way from the military, because there would be a lot of things that are shady that you would experience there, and you don't talk about it. So maybe that's just, I put that in that file. But to the extent where I'm actually a curious creature, and I want to talk to people like you guys who've talked to countless of people and connecting. It's all about knowledge and connecting the dots. And I need to open that book a little more.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful for you if you did.
Yeah. Just do it. Don't go rushing into it because you never know.
Yeah. So,
You're going to discover when you open those floodgates.
Right. Right.
I think, my family, so I looked into that. My family, they've also seen a bunch of, I wouldn't say aliens because they don't talk about it, but like just weird things that have happened in my life. So maybe it's a genetic thing. My grandma she'd tell us stories about how when she was a kid that she got really, really sick, and she had this picture of Jesus on like above her bed. And so she said that she was laying in bed trying to get over this illness. And of course, this is like 1930s, really long time ago. She's old. Well, she was. So she said that she looked up on the picture of Jesus and she was praying to him. And so he started moving and laughing at her. And so she got freaked out and she was screaming. And so my great grandma came in, and then the picture went back to normal. And so she had she would tell us all these stories of things that would happen. And then some of my aunts, they would have this like medium connection where they see things. And so I think it's just maybe genetically passed down that some of us are magnets. So
that could be
possible. Yeah. Who knows what this world is made of? I mean, we're taught certain things growing up. We're taught a certain way of life. We're taught this is this way, this is this way. But when we become adults and get into things, we start to realize things like this, for example, are talking about it. The world is not what we were taught. And who knows what's out there. So you just have to have an open mind and accept it, I guess, and try to figure it out. Talking about it like we do. Like we've said before, Brian and I have talked about this at different scenarios. Bigfoot, you have it, whatever. And I'm more confused now than when I started. I thought I had it. I
thought we'd be getting some answers, but we have more questions now than when we started.
Yeah, I can't wrap anything around what's going on in this world or what this world means or why we're here. I thought I knew a little bit, but I have no clue at this point. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's like... It's like, dude, just tell us they're aliens out there. Like, nobody's really going to care. I'm like, okay, well, cool. I got to get to work,
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Like, I've really, I guess what happened since this event, it kind of put it into a higher gear of trying to not only understand that and just try to kind of knowledge myself on other things. And I do try to go out by, the Blackfoot Res on East Glacier and other places around Montana and try to kind of do my own amateur investigation and try to see just what is really trying to speak to me. And it's funny as out here it's like with the whole Bigfoot thing. If you go to certain areas, you do find weird huts, you do find tracks, you do find stuff like that. And it's just, I still can't understand any of it. It's none of it makes sense to me. The thing that does kind of freak me about all this other stuff that I have never experienced is the Dogman stuff. And that just sounds really just wicked. Everything else sounds crazy cool, but still scary. But that Dogman stuff just sounds super wicked.
Yeah, I mean, that's stuff they put in horror movies, werewolves, I mean, Bigfoot's one thing, could tear you apart if you wanted to, but you don't really hear of that happening. I mean, this Dogman creature, it's just out to kill and eat, I don't think it cares what you are, to be honest with you. And how the hell, why is it here? Who put it here? Who made it? No idea.
Yeah, I feel like they're all connected. I feel like it's funny with ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot, this myths that are out there, they all have one thing in common. That's lights. A lot of people who report Bigfoot sightings, they see lights, they see orbs. Same thing with Dogman. The little people on the res, they all connected with some kind of energy, some kind of light. And that is the one thing I feel like they all have in common. But yeah, nobody can understand it.
Well, if somebody figures it out, I hope they tell me.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Jesse, we thank you for coming on today and sharing all your experiences. And that was great stuff, man.
Yeah, that was wild.
Cool. I'm glad to be on. I was glad to talk to you guys and kind of crack open more of this experience.
Yeah. So if you ever do get to talk to somebody and you figure this out, get back with us. Let us know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Or if you see
and
something
let us know
else.
what's going on up in Montana as you're out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious on this road that the girl from Libby's talking about. I kind of want to go out there and see what she's talking about and kind of get maybe a sense of what that is. But I for sure know that's a medicine man. So
yeah, that's interesting. Cool. Someone else reached out to us in an email and was asking to put us in contact with her. And I said, well, we don't normally give out that information, but if you Google her on Facebook in that area or just Libby, Montana. But it's interesting that you brought that up. There's some weird stuff going on out there. And I'm sure Glacier National Park has some very interesting things going on too.
Oh yeah, she's not wrong. I totally believe what she saw because I don't know if you guys been to Montana, but this is some very dense, rugged, crazy kind of terrain, way crazier than Sierra Nevada. And this place, I feel like if I was something I didn't want to be seen, this is where I would go. And I totally believe her on what she encountered. So, and she's only maybe an hour and a half away from me. So
cool.
Wow.
Yeah, cool.
Right on.
Well, thanks again, Jesse. If you see something, if something else goes on, or if you figure that out, please get in touch with us and send us that picture that you drew.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
See that.
All right, man. You take care.
All right. Thanks, Jesse. Take care.
You too. Bye.
I don't know, man. What do you think? What do you think happened to that guy?
Pretty compelling that I think he probably might have gotten abducted.
Something. I mean, you're driving along.
I mean, you don't normally just lose time.
And he said he worked for the government at some point, and he said he didn't do drugs, he didn't drink. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to black out on a human level, you're going to have a car accident. You're not just going to end up driving and end up in a cul-de-sac 25 miles or whatever it was away.
Yeah. So that's what I think.
These things could at least be
what our listeners think.
They could at least be respectful enough to put you back where they found you.
Yeah, right. Not miles down the road in a different spot.
Or naked in the middle of the woods like Travis.
Or naked in the middle of the woods like Travis. Poor Travis.
But who knows? It's probably terrifying. I can only imagine. But I do remember some people talking about...
Well, if you've ever seen fire in the sky, you know that it's terrifying.
Yeah. And I do remember hearing people talk about other abductions, that what they experienced, what they thought these things were saying to them, mind speaking to them, just weird stuff. Just way out there. Right. But we could speculate on this for hours. I hope you guys enjoyed the show.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Let us know if you've had an alien encounter.
Reach out to us. Get on our website, www.cryptidcreatures.net, or shoot us an email at info@cryptidcreatures.co. Let us know what's going on.
There's Facebook or there's Instagram, so let us know.
Reach out. Listeners, thanks for listening. Brian, thanks for being here with me again, as always.
Yeah, man. Always fun.
All right, we'll get the hell out of here. You ready?
Yep. See ya.